So when I first got my Cirrus, I used to struggle to get the plane started. Once it was running, everything was great, but starting was something that I just struggled with for a long time. There are different conditions and different procedures to use. Over the years, I've finally mastered what I think is a technique that works really well for me. So I'm going to share that technique with you, and there's 3 different ways that I do it. First way is when the engine is cold. Right now, we're just starting up for the day. The plane's been in the hangar overnight, so the plane is cold. And so this is the simple cold start technique. So the way I do it is, first I turn on battery 2, wait for the screens to come up, just as a procedure, just to verify that the oil temperature is what I expect it to be, which should be between 80 and 90 right now, given the weather outside, maybe a little colder. So there we go, oil temperature is 79, and that confirms that I'm going to do a cold start. Now, the cold start technique here, battery 1, mixture rich, throttle wide open, then prime 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to low boost 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I bring the throttle back to the E and then crank.
And that seems to work every single time. Right after it turns over, I take the throttle back from the E
back to the R, and that usually gets me between 1,000 and 1,200 RPM. And then I just wait for the engine to warm up before I start taxiing. Oh yeah, and the most important thing, turn on the air conditioning. All right, here we go.
All right, so now we're on to technique number 2. This is what I call my warm start technique. And right now, the engine oil temperature is probably between 100 and 150. And when it's in that range, that's when I use this technique. This technique is extremely simple. Battery 2, verify the oil temperature. Oil temp 99. I'll still use the technique just because I want to show you. But essentially what I do is I put mixture rich, crack the throttle to the E, and as I'll hit battery 1, and then as I crank, that's when I put it into low boost, and then just hold the crank until it turns over.
And just like technique number 1, in this technique, I bring the throttle back from the E back to the R.
So this time, the plane is very hot. I'm going to vent the oil, and it probably won't make much of a difference this time because the oil temp is 180 right now, and even after I get fuel and everything, it's still going to be pretty hot. You will soon see my number 3 technique, which is the true hot start, or should I say the dreaded hot start. Okay, so now it's time for the dreaded hot start. This is technique number 3, and this is the one that there's all kinds of differing opinions out there on how to do it, but the technique I use seems to work for me. So my technique is battery 2, verify the oil temp, and if the temp is between 150 and 200, this is the technique that I use. And if it's over 200, you might want to take a break and just wait. All right, oil temp's showing 191, so definitely a hot start. So my technique here is to keep the power lever about halfway, about to the W, the throttle, then the mixture started at idle. As you crank, do a 3 count as you bring in the mixture to full rich, and then when it kicks, immediately bring the throttle back. So here goes. Let's cross your fingers. And there is a hot start.
So there you have it. These are my 3 go-to techniques for starting the Cirrus. Just a couple of footnotes. First, if I'm in some colder climate and the oil temperature is below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, I make sure that I have preheated the plane for a few hours with the Tannis preheater before I attempt to start. Then I do a normal cold start, which is the first technique you saw in this video. Second, if I'm stopping somewhere for gas and want to make a quick turn and I know the engine is super hot, sometimes I will sump out a little of the hot fuel out of the gascolator before attempting the hot start, which you just saw. This seems to help. I don't do it all the time, but it is certainly something to try if you have a problem with a hot start. So I hope this video is helpful. If you like this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of my latest videos.